when somebody is bleeding or they've got excessive burns or they've got excessive diarrhea, vomiting, they can become so pale, their eyes can't open, they fall asleep, tongue flops back, they may stop breathing. So you have to, so lie down again. So while you're doing all this, you have to keep talking. Are you still with me?
Oh, yes.
Yes. He's going nowhere yet. Okay? But if he weren't responding, if he was talking to you a while ago and now he stopped talking, you have to go and look at his face. Check his eyes. Oh dear, you're not breathing and you're not talking. You make sure blood goes back to the brain. A good leg first. And if you can use both legs, then you would lift this. Somebody could lift that one and you could lift the other. But if he starts, yeah, exactly. Okay, look, he's all lovely now. Look, his colours coming out.
Oh, yes.
So, if you have help, use people. If you have chairs or equipment, they can put the leg on, that's fine.
But some guys not helping, just
stand there.
His phone's recording.
You tell them, no, please help. So, this is, you deal with shock, you deal with bleeding and fracture, you deal with immobilizing. If it's a child and they're moving the leg, you deal with elevate it. You check that if you tie it off, check that he can feel life in his foot. Okay, if he can, that's fine. If not, undo that. Okay, if he just twisted his ankle, please can you get some ice? Go to the supermarket. You put ice in a bag, lots of ice. You put it on his ankle, you wrap it there, and you keep the ice there to prevent the swelling. So ice would reduce swelling on the twisted ankle, twisted knee, twisted elbow, and things like that.
I had this myself.
Yeah, you had ice.
2 years ago.
And did the ice help?
Yes.
Good. Ice is very good.
And after
Yes, ice is very good. So, ice for swollen where it's not bleeding. But if it's bleeding, you apply pressure, wrap it around very well, leave any object sticking out, tell them, don't pull that out because it's there, it plugs the hole. If you move it, blood will start pumping out, okay? And you'll lose too much blood. So you explain to the casualty. Then, don't forget his hand. We've got to do his hand. So stand up now. He's got a lovely colour now. Support him with your leg so he doesn't fall back. And say he's got this on his hand. Can you hold this? If he's awake, let him hold the dressing there while you put one over it. Use the padded bit. Move your fingers now, please, and just secure it. So, young man, have you been working here for a long time at this company? Yes. How many years? 6 years. Ooh, you should be the manager then. Not yet. You're working on it. See, he didn't want you to apply for the job. That's why he pushed you.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't watch people like that. They say they're holding the ladder and...
He's captain. I'm blooding, he's laughing.
They tell you they're holding the ladder and they walk off to have a fag.
Exactly.
Not very helpful, is he?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Right. So, if you can make the casualty laugh, smile, just to give them feeling happy if they can. Okay, young man, let's see your hand. Oh, you've got another cut there. Hold that. In fact, this one. This one. Keep it tight. It seals the area that's bleeding. Okay? Again, if he's got any knife or anything sticking out, you put smaller ones. You would put smaller pads. Your first aid box will have different size pads. Okay, so you put small one. Leave the bit where the object is sticking out, so that
Two.
yeah, two on either side, in between whatever's sticking out. So give me that thing. Say this was what you had sticking out. You know, you leave it, you squeeze it together, and then where you can, you would hold that. Make sure you'd have clean bandages anyway, fresh bandages always, and always find a padded bit. Open your fingers, keep your fingers open. Don't bandage your fingers unless you really have to. Go around it, seal the edges. Oops.
It's 1920, 900. No, that's not really that. It's basically 1,900.
Okay. Now you may need a sling to support his hand, or if he has another triangular bandage. If he had a cut to the head.
Oh, Jesus.
A lot of cuts, isn't it?
It's really. Don't go on that ladder again. Okay? You do whatever. Keep that dressing there, and if he's got a cut on his jaw, whatever. Okay? Whatever he's got. This is very good to act as a pressure companion. So you've got the bandage and then this on top, or ice and then this on top. Okay? So now we're going to use it to wrap his hand and keep it supported like a sling. So 3 sides. The longest side goes towards his fingers, and one of the long end goes on the shoulder where the fingers are. So it's either over or under. Under his hand with the pointed bit at the elbow when it's 90 degrees across his chest. And then you support him like that. That's called an arm sling or a support sling. Okay? If he's broken his elbow, let him raise the hand up near his jaw. Keep this in the same position. The long bit near his hands. Put it on top. Same pointed bit at the elbow. Put this under his fingers. Wrap it around his fingers. Twist that. And then you would tie it around it. This one is short, so let's use another one that's longer. This might be longer. So on top now, okay, put his hand up near his jaw, twist it, and then you do it tight so his hand doesn't fall down. It just keeps it upright if it's a broken elbow, or if he's got a knife in the hand and it was bleeding heavily, the hand is elevated.
Yes, yes.
And it keeps it from bleeding excessively. So this is a whistle stop store on everything. Ankle, bone fractures, complicated fractures, hand injury, palm injury, head injury, whatever. You would apply pressure, clean bandage, and then a support around it. If it's a swelling, you put ice and then a support around it. You can use a sling to support the arm or a limb. Keep their back supported while you're dealing with them from the side. Keep talking to them. Ambulance car. Look, the ambulance is here now, just in time. Okay? And then if they're going in the ambulance, ask them, do you want me to ring your relatives and let them know you're going to the hospital? Ask the ambulance which hospital he's going to. Get his phone. He can tell you who his next of kin is. If he can't talk, you need to look on the files. Files, or on the computer where the personal files are, and ring the relatives. What's your name? Deirdris.
Yes.
Deirdris, hello, is that Mrs. Deirdris? Your husband is fallen. We've looked after him. He's gone to the hospital, Whittington Hospital, St. Mary's Hospital. If you want to make your way there, one of our members of staff will accompany him to the hospital or something like that. So you show care that he will give you the phone number from his phone, or if not, you check files. Okay? So that's how you care for them right through. Alright? Don't go in the hospital with the casualty in the ambulance, because you won't get a lift back. And if you haven't got any money, you have to have a long walk. So drive behind the ambulance, and then you could accompany them, and then you have your car to come back when they're finished. Okay? Leave him some money, just in case he gets hungry. Nothing to eat or drink when they have cuts like this, in case they need an operation. If you give them things to drink, they could vomit, and they could be swallowing the vomit. But if he said he was thirsty, wet a new clean bandage and just moisten the lips, okay? With a clean bandage and water. Clean dressing pad.
Yeah, that would just help quench the
Just moisten his lips to make him feel.
Like after operation.
Yeah.
Because we assume not drinking.
Drink, yeah. Okay? So all those things. Right, lovely. He's done this now. I've done him. So you do each other. And have you done bandages before? If not, you lie down, you do one side of him, and he'll do the other side. You really got two hands broken. He'll have two legs broken.
Can I sit down for the bandages?
Right, bring that thing and put it there, and you will stop down in your stomach. So, okay, so come forward. Put this on. So, your job is to try and get whatever's in their stomach out. So you would speak to them. Yeah, okay. And you would say, hello. Put your hand in your neck.
Right, this.
Yeah. Hello, my name's Joan Manning. I'm a first aider. Are you choking?
Yes.
Lean forward, please. Cough. And I'm going to suck you by the tongue. Cough with me. 5 times. If that didn't work, and make sure they cough when you're hitting them. Don't hit them after they've coughed. It's sequence, so it exert more pressure. Okay? Lean forward, that didn't work. And cough again, please. I'm going to press on your tummy. Keep coughing. See? And then that will come out. So whilst they're coughing, clasp the hands together. Feel for the tummy button above that. In. Just there. Just above the button. And in, and you're going under the diaphragm.
Right.
Okay? So it's in and okay? If you do it, forceful enough, it will exert whatever's there. Every time I do a course and somebody said they've had a problem, it's always this that gets to get it out. One guy mentioned that he was in a restaurant and he was choking. He said, I couldn't breathe. And I went outside for fresh air because I was looking at everyone and they didn't take no notice of me. I went outside and the guy was smoking and he saw me and he just dropped his cigarette and came back and went, and he just got through and and it just came out. Oh.
Really?
Yeah. He said, I was so relieved. You wouldn't believe I thought I had gone. Okay, so you do it to him, and then he will do it to this one. Take it off, ask him if he's choking, and then you explain your first aid.
Alright, mate, I'm a first aider. Are you choking?
Yeah.
Alright, lean forward.
Yeah.
Lean forward.
Cough.
Yeah. Cough.
I'm going to slap you 5 times.
I'll slap you, alright? Cough. Cough. Perfect. Still there?
Yeah.
Still choking?
Yeah.
Right. So lean
Press
forward,
on your
Lee.
tummy.
Yeah.
Lean forward, I'm going to press your tummy.
We preserve life. The law says we have to make sure accidents are kept to minimum, but if it does happen, the first aid reg says we have to provide people that can look after those who are injured. And whether you have a lot of people or disabled people or big organization, you have to know how many first aiders you will need. For low risk, you only may need an appointed person. An appointed person is just someone who will assist with resuscitation. But anything else, they'll give you the first aid box and say, deal with it, take a plaster yourself. Then there's a level 2 first aid emergency people. They will have done emergency first aid resuscitation and bleeding and fractures, but they won't do other heart conditions and other ailments. Level 3 covers everything. So we're going to talk about other ailments in a minute. So, in high-risk area, you need the level 3 or level 2, and for every 50 people, you need at least one level 3. You need first aid boxes, make sure they are near you and not upstairs or downstairs because you need to grab it quickly and run with it. Make sure you have extra supplies in the cupboard because if you use up the content and you go and open the box and there's nothing there, you need to go in the cupboard and take some things out, put it in the box and order more things and leave them as spare. If you have caterers, let them buy some blue plasters because when you give a plaster to a food handler, they may be washing up and it gets wet and the plaster can come off in the food. And if it's not blue, you won't see it. You'll end up eating a plaster with your meat and you won't know. One guy mentioned that he did eat a plaster once. He was chewing away, and he thought, what's this? It was a plaster. The first aid box will tell you all the things that should be in it, so make sure you know what's there and you make sure you keep topping it up, okay? And when someone has an accident, they need to fill in a form. The manager may help them to fill in a form. You as a first aider need to write down what treatment you gave them. Or they weren't breathing, I resuscitated them. Or they were choking and I did the abdominal thrust. Or they had a fracture, I bandaged it. I elevated their legs, I made sure they weren't going into shock, or I applied a tourniquet and I sent them to hospital. The manager will notify the health and safety executive under the reporting of disease and dangerous occurrences reg if the person is out of work for 7 days or if they have any other broken bone. If they die, they have to ring the HSE straight away. This shows you the diagram. You arrive at the scene, you communicate, you prioritize treatment. If somebody's quiet and somebody's crying over there, deal with the one who's quiet first to see if they're breathing. Get somebody to talk to the one that's in pain. If you arrive and the person is got their eyes open and you tell them, I'm a first aid, I'm here to help you, and they say, oh, that's nice, that's called express consent. If they can't talk and they don't say get lost, that's classified as an implied consent. They didn't tell you get lost, so you tell them what you're going to do next. I'm going to check if you're breathing, I'm going to turn you in a recovery position. If the person is awake and they are just dazed, put them in the recovery position. Stop the tongue blocking the airways and it allows anything in the mouth to drain. When you ring the ambulance, they will ask you these questions, where you are, whether you need other service like the fire brigade or the police. The police would cordon off the road if there was traffic, cars coming. So they may ask you if you need that. If you have someone and they're still hanging in the ceiling, the ambulance will ask you, do you need the fire brigade as well? The fire brigade will cut the person from the roof. Don't pull them down by the leg. You pull out their hip or something. You can cause more danger and make their condition worse. So don't pull them when they're suspended. In fact, once when I was a safety advisor at the school, we had an incident saying that this boy was climbing on the tree over some spike rails when the parents came to pick him up, and the caretaker came out and saw him and said, "Get down off there." And he jumped down and he fell on the spike rail, and the spike was through his hand and he came out of his palm of his hand. And the parents all came and they made a cushion for him to sit on, their hands like a swing, and he sat there on their hand. They didn't pull him off, because if they pulled him off he would lose so much blood, so they kept him there, just supported his bum on their hand until the fire brigade came with the ambulance and they cut the fence. They cut the spike rail.
So the spike to the hospital.
Yeah, they took him the spike with him to the hospital until they can give him injection. It will reduce the bleeding, the pumping. So it's like a sedative.
So it's a heart.
Slow the heart down, and then they can remove it slowly and he won't lose too much blood. So sometimes don't be too quick to get them on the floor, because they may have to stay there in that position. You just support them until the ambulance comes. Get people to help you. You don't have to do it all yourself. Whoever is around, utilize them as well. Okay, so it'll ask you if you need other services and all that. What's the extent of the injury? Yellow bags is good for dirty dressings, but if you don't have any, then it's going to go in the bin. So always check for safety, protection. Put your gloves on, use mouth shield if the mouth is bleeding. Check for other hazards on the floor, assess, prioritize the quiet ones, and keep checking your environment. All that is called a primary survey. Danger, response, look in the airway, check the breathing, do the cardiac, pulmonary resuscitation, CPR for short. Clean up any mess. It says voice is the last thing that go, so say nice things. They may be listening. One guy mentioned to me on one of the courses that he was driving a car and the car crashed, and he was wedged between the steering wheel and the steering wheel and the seat, the driver's seat. His friend got thrown out of the car, and he said a friend dragged him out and he was laying on his back. But he said just by listening to what the guy was saying to the ambulance kept him alive, because he said, I couldn't talk, but I was listening, saying, oh, is that what's happened to me? And I could hear him telling, oh, his shoulder's ripped, his leg is broken. I'm thinking, gosh. But he said, because I was listening so much when the ambulance came, and I was reasonably conscious, because the guy didn't know to turn me and in a recovery position, and I was in too much pain anyway. I probably wouldn't have felt it. He said I was basically knocked out. So they tell you, extend the head, listen for 10 seconds, feel for the pulse, even if agonal breathing, meaning that do a last gasp, keep checking, and if you don't hear any more bleeding, summons somebody to call the ambulance before you start compression. Get somebody to bring the box and the defib if you haven't already done so. Secondary survey or top-to-toe assessment is when you see them on the floor, their eyes are open, you ask them what happened. That's the history. You put your gloves on, you look for bleeding and signs of any fractures, any injury. Tell them, let me know if you feel any pain. That's the symptoms. All those three form a diagnosis, and you can tell the ambulance, oh, he's in pain. He told me he fell through the roof, and when I felt his butt, he couldn't feel my hands, or he made a noise, so I haven't turned him. Once they didn't make a noise, use the first arm to put in 90 degrees, get them over, and put them in the recovery position. It stops the tongue blocking the airway, and that's the only time you could leave them and go and get your phone if it was in another room, or don't ever leave them on the back, okay? We take oxygen in, mixed with other gases, helps to sustain our brain. We have about 10 to 20 exchange of air in our lungs every minute. When we eat food, it comes down into the mouth and it gets blocked here, if it's a big lump, and it squeezes our air canal so we can't get air in. That's when we choke. So that's when we ask the person to lean forward and we slap this part in the bent position. When you're slapping, it will slide out. Or if that doesn't work, you put your hand above the nipple, the navel, the tummy button, twist up under this diaphragm, which will push pressure and hopefully eject the object while we're in that bended position. So resuscitation, again, they just go over telling you should press about 5 to 6 centimeters deep and 100 to 150 press a minute. Mouth to mouth, keep going until the ambulance come, call for help, keep repeating until you're exhausted. Okay, ambulance is on its way. This is the choking thing we told you. Encourage them to cough, 5 blows, and if that doesn't work, abdominal thrust, and then you would repeat 3 times until the ambulance comes. If the person falls down because the tongue is blocking the airway, still you didn't get it out and they collapse, you have to forget that they've got it there and listen to the heart and press CPR if the heart has stopped. Even though the object is there, the most important thing is getting the heart working, because the heart will send blood to the brain, which keeps you alive. If you're sitting there thinking, ooh, that thing is still there, and they're not getting any oxygen, heart will collapse, lungs will collapse, and they'll be gone off to glory. Bleeding, when we have bleeding, we obviously losing blood. Blood is made up of water, clotting agent called plasma, hemoglobin, and white blood cells. When we get a cut, we need to look at the cut, make sure we stop the bleeding quickly before they go into shock. Okay? Shock occurs when there's excessive bleeding, excessive burn, excessive vomiting, or excessive diarrhea. Clean dressing always, check their body, make sure they don't go into shock. Pale skin will be blue, darker skin will be grey, will be sticky and clammy. They may feel like vomiting, they feel sick, their heart will be beating fast. Look in their eyes and make sure there's blood. If not, elevate their legs like he's doing here. Okay? And if they are fainting, if somebody walks in front of you faint, talk to them, what's happened, or faint. You can make sure they haven't broken any limbs, and then elevate so that they get blood to the brain. Wounds of any sort, whatever color, just means that's got oxygen. This hasn't, oxygen being used up. Put bandage and apply pressure. Where there's an object sticking out, pads on both sides, don't push the object down, don't remove it. No bleeding on the outside, put ice. And wounds like this, you just cover it. Head injury, cover it, and put a bandage around it, okay? Get the casualty to hold the dressing in place if they are conscious. Check them, make sure you elevate the legs if they look pale. Where bleeding is occurring, put a pad, but leave the private parts, don't need to put any pads. Where somebody's lost a bit of their body part, collect it, put it in a bag with ice, leave it next to them so it goes to the hospital with them. Don't put it in the fridge because you may forget it. And they go to hospital without their bits. They need it so it can be stitched on. Okay, so put ice, wrap the part Hello? Listening, taking them to,
Sorry, what time are we supposed to be leaving roughly? So I've got a lift coming to get me.
about 5 minutes.
I'll get to the
Let's get on with it quickly. So, body parts, they must go to the hospital with them quickly. Bruising, cold compress like ice, and make sure that you elevate. Nosebleeds, what do we do for nosebleeds? Forward now. It used to be backwards, before it was forward. Tell them to pinch the nose and lean forward and drain. Pinch the nose for 20 minutes or put ice on the top of the nose. Somebody who's got epilepsy, a shake, it means that blood is not going to the brain properly because there may have been a blow to the head and there could be a slight damage to the blood vessels. So sometimes they'll be talking to you, then they're staring. If they're conscious and they're fine, they're not shaking, just call the ambulance, okay? If they're frothing from the mouth, you may want to put them in a recovery position, especially if they're shaking, and make sure the head is lean to the side. You can't get them over in the recovery position. They may look blue or whatever. Make sure if they've got anything like fluid or saliva, put them on the side or tilt their head, okay? Keep monitoring them. They may not be able to talk, but just monitor and keep the head to the side and call the ambulance. Burns, cold water or ice, it doesn't matter whether it's full thickness, partial, you don't need to know how deep it is. All you need to know is put ice until the stings stop. More ice, or cold water, freezing cold water. Remove any jewelry so that if the hand gets swollen, it doesn't cause a problem. Any object, leave it in, don't pull it out, okay? Alright, let's do the other one. So, we've done all that. Now bones. When we fall, we break the bone, the bone tears the muscle, and we may bleed. Sometimes we bleed under the skin, but it's not outside of the skin. The skin is not broken. Where it's not broken, don't put any bandage. Just leave it in the open air for it to get fresh air. Immobilize them, it says. Just rest it on something and call the ambulance. Okay, so no bandage, just support it. Talk to the person so they don't go into shock. We did this outside, where we did the slings, okay, support slings. We did this where we put 2 pads and we did a fracture, open fracture. Where you have sprains at the ankle, ice. Oh, if it's still a fracture, you immobilize it. But if it's not a fracture, well, if you've got a dislocated elbow, that would be classed as a fracture, and you would put it in a sling, like we did, called an elevated sling. Where there's soft tissue injuries, like the ankles or knee or elbow, ligaments have been damaged. So, they cause sprain and strains. You just get swollen ankles. Remember this acronym, these acronyms. Rest the leg, put some ice, use a bandage on top, and elevate. Okay? That's when the bone hasn't been broken, but you twisted the ankle. Head injuries, whether mild concussion or more severe ones, they'll all be dizzy, they'll all see blinking stars and all sorts. If they're confused, put them in the recovery position, call the ambulance. Monitor their breathing. Make sure they don't stop breathing. Apply dressing where blood is oozing, and put their head down on a pillow so that not too much blood goes to the brain. We don't want it leaking or coming through the ear. If it's more serious with a dent in the skull, you can see that it's bleeding, just mop up any blood that may be coming through and monitor their response level. When we check for injuries, we're checking the spine to make sure there's no damage. But if they are entwined into a piece of equipment, don't move them because they could have spinal injury. Just support them in the position where they are. Any wounds, we told you, don't pull any objects out. Even if you hear noise sucking into the body, just cover it up with pads. Get other people to put a glove on and hold the bandage in place if you can't tie it. Or tell the casualty to keep holding onto the object so that it doesn't get pulled out and too much blood is lost. Put pads around and get people to hold the pads in place. Okay? Anything that has fallen onto someone, it says after 15 minutes you shouldn't move it because toxins will build up around the area. It thinks there's an infection, but it isn't. And when you move this, the toxins go around the body and it could close down the heart and the liver. So what are you going to do? They can't breathe. You're going to ring the ambulance and tell them something is on them. You don't know how long they've been there. Should you move it? Okay, if they tell you move it, you move it. Other people who may have abdominal wounds, again, let them hold the pad there. Elevate the knees just to stop too much blood being lost and all the blood can be kept up at the top. Make them comfortable. Don't pull anything out. Burns, we already said cold water. Chemical burns, keep them longer under the cold water because that will sting. Lightning strikes or high voltage electricity, you can't touch them with your bare hands. But domestic low level damage with electricity, if somebody's got a piece of tool in the hand and you think they're suffering from electric shock, you can't touch it with your bare hands, but you may get a broom and knock the thing out of their hands, and so switch off the current and call the ambulance. If you can, take the broom and put them on the side so they breathe, do so, but not with your bare hands. Eye injury, any injury, keep the eye still, don't poke anything out unless you can blow it out, don't be picking. You could cause more damage. Just tell them to rest the eye. You can put ice pack or there's eye shields in the first aid box. Keep it still. Anything like metal that's gone in the eye, flush the eye under the tap. Poisoning, you need to check that they're breathing, if they've swallowed anything, chemicals, pills. If they're awake, you can give them a sip of water and tell them drink some sips to dilute it. Look at the container, see if it tells you that they should drink water or milk. Don't let them vomit it, because they said if it's acid, it will burn going down, and when they vomit, it will burn coming up. Just water to dilute. But if they're not responding and they're conscious, put them in the recovery position. And collect the container and let it go with them to the hospital so that they know what they have taken. If they want to vomit naturally, let them vomit, but if not, just put them in the recovery position if they're not breathing properly. But check their heart. If they stop breathing completely, resuscitation. If they're just breathing shallow but unconscious, put them in the recovery position. What does this mean? Anaphylaxis is a type of reaction if you're allergic to something that you've eaten, nuts, wasp or bee sting, seafood, even antibiotics, you can be allergic to it if you just started taking it yesterday and you may be allergic. Your body, the pale skin will come up into redness and rashes. Will itch, the darker skin will itch, and the swollen eyes, swollen lips. Nothing you can do if it's the first time. But if they're breathing in a panic and you have a brown paper bag, just tell them, put it around the mouth and nose, breathe. If you have one, it's their own breath, their own air. It will help to slow down their anxiety, and it will just relax them. It's like you putting air into somebody else's lungs when you're doing resuscitation. But get them to the hospital. Other times, if they've had it before, they will be given an injection that they're meant to use. It's called an EpiPen, and they will have this thing that they may need to. Have I got one? So, something like this, if you ask them, have you had this before? When there's medical condition, if you're not sure, always ask, have you had this problem before? Have you been to the doctors? No. Okay, ambulance, they've got a problem, they've never been to the doctor with it before. But if they said, yes, I have, did you get medication? Yeah, where is it? In my locker. Go get the bag, give it to them. If they've got something like this, they have to take off the nozzle, press it down to release the substance in there, which is adrenaline. It helps to calm them down. So if they've had it before, they go to the doctor, they'll get something like this, which is a syringe and needle called an EpiPen. If they don't have one like that, ambulance, fresh air. If they can't breathe, and you can get a brown paper bag or white paper bag, any paper, not plastic, let them breathe in it, breathe their own air. And basically, yeah, it's called an EpiPen. Any other conditions, chest pains, don't say, are you having a heart attack? Just say, have you got pain in the chest? Is it the first time it's happened? Normally, they may feel pain in the arm. Is it going down your arm? That means that the blood is under pressure to pump blood around the heart. Just make sure you sit them down. If they want to sit on the floor, it says bend the knees. But if they're happy sitting on a chair, you just say, would you like to sit on the floor with your knees up? It helps to just relax you a bit more. Or do you want to sit on a chair? Some people may want to walk around. That's fine. Whatever is easiest for them. Call the ambulance. But you do ask, have you had this before? Are you on medication? If they have had it before and they say, yes, I'm on medication, ask them, where's the medication? Give it to them, and they can be taking that until the ambulance comes. Stroke, they won't have medication if it's the first time. They may just have a limp because they've had a blow to the brain. Normally, if they had a blow on the left side, it will affect the right side. If they've had a blow on the right side, it will affect the left side. You know if they've had a stroke because when you say, hello, are you all right? They can't get the words out. Hello, what's your name? What's your name? Raise both hands. One hand will go up, the other one where they had the weakness won't be able to be raised. So, with speech, with facial weakness, time to call the ambulance. Just, again, lie them down towards the weaker side and call the ambulance. People in work can have a problem with their sugar level. Some people may not be able to eat certain food because it has too much sugar, especially younger people. They may have a condition called hyperglycemia, type 1 diabetes. If they eat anything, carbohydrates and sugary things, they need insulin afterwards to break down the sugar. So they could faint if they haven't eaten. Type 2 diabetes affect older people over 40. they used to have insulin, but now they've used up most of it and they may be given a tablet. They can faint as well. So you would ask somebody who's faint if they're awake, are you a diabetic or have you got medical condition? Yes. What is it? I'm a diabetic. What type? 1 or 2? Whatever. If it says type 1, have you eaten today? No, I didn't have breakfast. Have you got anything in your bag? Because they may be given special things they can carry with them. A Ribena, Lucozade, a special biscuit. If they have it, can I get it for you? Have something to eat. If it's type 2 and they don't have anything, you ask them, have you got anything to eat? And they say no. You can give the type 2 hypoglycemia a sweet cup of tea, a sweet drink or a sugar, but type 1, because they need the insulin, if they don't have the insulin with them, they can't have anything but water. So you would, if you're not sure and they're not responding, just tell the ambulance. Okay? So type 2, they may have something as well, but you can give them something if they haven't got it. And asthmatic, if somebody is wheezing, again, you would ask them, have you had this before? They may be allergic to grass that's freshly cut, pollen, cat, dog hairs, and things like that, or any dust. They start wheezing. If they've had it before, they will be given an asthma pump. They carry that with them, and you would ask them, where is it? Get their bag, give it to them. If it's the first time and they've got nothing, just give them fresh air. If they're panicking and you've got a bag, let them breathe in that. But nothing you can do until the ambulance comes. And that's it. Okay, so fast. Right, now, the paper